We're gathering around the table today with Jami, and I'll pass the mic over to her to start off. Could you share a little bit about yourself and your background? But we have another Chicagoan with the beautiful Chicago skyline in the background, so we'll let you off the hook with what's your city or state known for.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Yeah, my name's Yamilette, but Jami for short. I actually grew up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is on the east side of Pennsylvania, about an hour and a half north of Philly, 2 hours south of New York. So grew up in PA, but moved to Chicago about 2.5 years ago when I decided to pursue my executive MBA from the University of Notre Dame. So go Irish. But yeah, did undergrad at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. Spent some time in Miami, Florida for 4 years, moved back home to Pennsylvania, and then eventually made my way out to the Midwest, which I now call home. For work, I work for Navy Federal Credit Union as a senior risk analyst, where I focus more on HR management, risk management, and compliance. And yeah, I'm just involved here in Chicago in a lot of ministries. I'm part of Young Catholic Professionals. I serve on the leadership team as VP and Director of Marketing. I also serve as a lector and Eucharistic minister at Holy Name Cathedral. I also help to lead a virtual small group for Magdalene Ministries and yeah, just kind of do all sorts of other random things throughout the diocese as well.
You went from the Sunshine State to snow and cold and wind, the Windy City, right?
Yeah, and it's so funny because the last two winters weren't so bad. I thought it was very similar to Pennsylvania in terms of like, oh, it's like a mild winter. I don't know what are these like really crazy Midwest winters people warned me about. And then this year I definitely experienced that. Never in my life have I like experienced -30 and negative
Right?
40-degree wind chills. I just like didn't leave my house because I just wouldn't even know what to do.
Same, same. Today we're talking all about your testimony and your encounter with Jesus Christ and your reversion story. So you mentioned that you were a cradle Catholic, and so what was life like growing up?
Yeah, so I'm the middle child of five, so I'm lucky number three. And so I grew up in a big Puerto Rican family household in Pennsylvania. And I would say, yeah, I went to K through 8 Catholic school and, kind of just like went through the motions, did the
Mhm.
typical Hispanic Catholic family thing, went to mass, for Easter and Christmas and all that. I do remember though, like, my mom once in a while like praying the rosary, like having people over from her like rosary group and just they would pray the rosary in Spanish. But in general, though, I would say that my faith was very like lukewarm, like growing up. Because then I went to a public high school, kind of started to fall away from the faith. And then even though I went to a Catholic university, I didn't really participate too much. Like I would occasionally go to campus ministry events, but I definitely like fell away and didn't go to mass like on a weekly basis. But I would say though I never lost faith in God. I may have lost kind of like practicing and going to the sacraments, but I always just believed in God. I always believed that he loved me and that he existed and it just like it made sense to me just kind of that there was a creator of the universe just kind of with like because I'm really intellectual. I love studying, I love learning. And so like I don't know, I just kind of like the more I learned about just how the world operated, even though I had like a liberal arts degree, I would take like calculus and like physics for fun, because I really like just kind of learning about space. And so I did that for like my gen ed requirements in college. But yeah, like I just felt like it just fascinated me how like properly ordered the world was and like just the universe, and just kind of, creation, like theories and whatnot in like the physics world. So yeah, just kind of I never lost my faith. It made sense to me that there was a God. Now, kind of later, like kind of finding out, and I'll go into a little bit. When did the Catholic faith become my own? That didn't really happen until I was 25 and living in Miami when I had my reversion. But yeah, I would say growing up, just kind of typical Catholic Hispanic household, just really like the faith was there. It was always around. All me and my siblings, we all have different degrees of faith. I wouldn't say any of us are complete atheists. Some of my siblings do struggle maybe with a little bit of being like kind of priest or Catholic or just being agnostic, but all of us we all definitely like grew up with faith, and so that's kind of yeah how I grew up.
When you were in high school and college, did you have any sort of like still faith life and prayer life? Like you mentioned, like, oh, I still believed in God, you know. Was
Mhm.
there any sort of prayer that was still incorporated or any kind of prayer routine that was you still kept?
Yeah, I think just kind of saying like Hail Marys. I'm actually ma very Marian. I think that's like kind of just instilled in my family. So one of my great aunts is actually she's a sister of the Servias de Maria. So it translates to Servants of Mary in Puerto Rico, in Ponce, Puerto Rico. And so she like very Marian spirituality. My mom, as I said, like grew up hearing her say the rosary and just, yeah, I would just, whenever times were like really difficult, I said, like, I would say Hail Marys. I like always kind of just knew that I had like a mother that was watching out for me. And kind of too, like my faith, like I had a lot of women. I had a lot of strong, like loving women in my family. My my biological father, I don't know him. Like I didn't grow up with him. I was very much raised by my stepfather. And my stepfather also had kind of just um some of his own like issues and demons growing up and well like when we were kids that kind of led him to be a little bit distant while we were growing up but so like I don't know this idea of like someone like a woman just I never had an issue with like believing in Mary and respecting Mary as like the mother of God because it was just kind of like I could easily relate to that because I
Mhm.
had such, between my sisters and my mom and like just like friends, like I just had really good, healthy female friendships and relationships in my life so that it was just always very comforting to lean on Mary, my mother, in times of difficult moments.
That's awesome because I feel like there's a lot of like Protestants or people who are like, oh, you worship Mary or like Mary, yeah, she's just his mom, and they don't have that relationship like it sounded like you had with her.
Yeah, like to me, it kind of just makes sense, you know. She's the mother of God, like she gave birth to him, like quite like it's very logical statement to
Mhm.
my in my mind. And I don't know, like most mothers, like everyone reveres their mother, so I don't understand why Protestants get very confused of like why we hold her in high esteem. Like, do you not respect your mom? Like, I don't know,
Mhm.
or your grandma? So it's like very confusing to me. I it's easy for me to follow
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, I want to talk about identity because we can all find identity in success, a career, for us men or for men, women. What would you say to somebody who's in a similar situation who's just putting so much into their identity?
Yeah, so growing up, I should have probably mentioned this, but growing up, I like I said, I was like the middle child. So I think that a lot of that stems and influences how I kind of just like grew up and how I like approached life. Because I was very much like had the middle child syndrome of, like nobody loves me, nobody gets me, like it doesn't matter if I exist. So, kind of my like teenage years was filled with a lot of like just like angst and depression and anxiety and not really like knowing my worth, like really, just kind of struggling with like suicidal ideation and just like not really wanting to live. And so even though I had such a big, full, beautiful life, but I think a lot of that was just kind of that wounds of like feeling abandoned, feeling rejected, especially also not knowing like my biological
Mhm.
father, like that was kind of probably I was like kind of almost like born into that in a way of like kind of those wounds of like abandonment and rejection. So yeah, like I found because I like, struggled with kind of just this depression and anxiety and not really knowing my worth, I would look for like validation that I mattered, that I was like really important either through school like I mentioned, I was, I really loved learning and I did really well in school. I was always like a straight A student. Or I would find it in men, just kind of wanting to feel like that physical attraction and having like men want me and men like, want to date me. So those were kind of like the two things that I really put a lot of my identity and self-worth in was just like how well was I doing in school? And then later as I got older, how well was I doing in a job? And then, men, like, does he like me? Does he love me? How long can I like I really prided myself in like holding like long-term relationships, which like in high school, I had like 3 1-year relationships, which is for high school, I feel like pretty long. Yeah, so I like was really like proud that like I was like wifey material. Yeah, so I guess for like people though that like are kind of like struggling with that, I guess I would say like don't try to put your identity in that because all of it is like fleeting. And I guess I would caveat that kind of with like, when I was living in Miami, I was like in a 4-year long-term relationship with a man that I thought I was gonna marry. Really towards the like last 2 years, it was just like really difficult. Just like kind of unhealthy dynamic, just a lot of like trust issues, a lot of just like not needs being not met. Like it like obviously like it just like really put me to my knees. And so and which also led to my reversion. So kind of just like people who are kind of going through that, just like, you're putting your worth in like especially another person. I think it's just hard. It's really hard to live life that way because then once that person's gone, then like it's really hard to find kind of like purpose and meaning in your life if you put all your purpose and meaning in that person. So for me, it really helped me to kind of just like learn, like lean into my identity as like a beloved daughter of God, and that like God is my rock, God is my foundation, God is the only person that like truly knows me, truly sees me, loves me, has been there. He's like the beginning and the end, the alpha and the omega, and like sees all of my life story, has been like there throughout it all. Because there isn't like it's too much pressure, I think, to kind of put all of that on like one person because one they don't like depends on how long they've been around, right? And then so like they won't know things. And then two, like, I'm doing this like faith and improv class actually with a dear friend, and she like literally like gave such a great life lesson her first week. She was like, you can only control 50% of the story, right? 50% of like the skit that you're trying to do in improv. And I think that's really similar to life. Like you can only control like your 50% and then like whatever happens, like whether it's with another person or with a job or other opportunity, like you only see like your own perspective. Only God will see like the 100%. So
Mm.
yeah, I think just kind of like get solid in your identity and really like root your identity in the Lord because He is your constant. He is your fire when you're wandering and you're looking for a safe haven. So
Well, I want to kind of piggyback off of that because you mentioned you were very involved in activities and work leadership and roles and all of that stuff. Those things aren't bad in and of itself, but I think, did you like just take those things to extreme, or what was that part of your life like?
yeah, yeah. In college and in high school, I was always like very involved. I did theater in high school. I did like track and field for like one semester, which like cracks me up in high school because I'm like super short. So like I would like I don't know why I thought I could like run really fast with my short little legs. And then I did just kind of like I was involved in like the Latino leadership like club in high school and stuff. And in college, oof, I did everything. I was in student government. I was part of like the student like we call it Duquesne Program Council, which like created all the major like big events on campus. I was in a sorority. I was in Alpha Phi. I did a little bit of campus ministry. I was an RA. I had like internships like with the Pittsburgh Penguins and like the art institutes, and then like literally also working like part-time waitressing jobs. Like and like taking 18 credits like class. I don't know how I slept an eight. Like I look back and I'm like, oh my goodness, how did I do all that? I
Yeah, I was
literally
gonna
did
say.
not. No wonder I was so skinny. I literally didn't sleep or eat. But yeah, I guess like and then kind of growing up, or like even more than that, like after college, I still continue to get involved, but it's funny because actually, when I had my reversion, when I moved to Miami, I kind of stopped all that. I wasn't really involved in anything. And I think a part of that led to like just me be feeling depressed and me feeling anxious, along with like what was going on with my boyfriend at the time, well, my ex-boyfriend at the time, because I was not living my authentic self. And so it wasn't really until that relationship ended, that I started to get involved with more, like, I got involved with the church. I had my reversion and got involved with the local young adult community in Miami. But even then, it was still like not a ton. It was kind of like I would lead like a women's ministry, do some street evangelization, but it was like something that someone else always like planned, and I was just kind of like supporting. I didn't take an active role. And then when I moved back home to Pennsylvania, that's when like I had kind of like I started my own like young adult group in Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is like the city next door to Bethlehem. And then now I'm in Chicago where I'm involved in a bunch of
Mhm.
things. So I say that all because like Miami, like in terms of like kind of just like how the Lord operated in me, I think he knew that I have this like gift of like leadership and service and just like wanting to evangelize. But there was a period of time where like which was in Miami, he had me just focus on my faith and he
Mhm.
kind of stripped me away of a lot of things. He stripped me away of my boyfriend. He stripped me away of my career. I was like freelancing and waitressing like
Mhm.
what like my last 2 years in Miami, like I was barely getting by. Like it was really rough. Like he stripped me of just kind of like, yeah, like all of those like success indicators. I back in 2019 when I moved back to Pennsylvania from Miami, I really felt like I was coming home with like my tail between my legs. Like I
Mhm.
completely failed and like at life and being an adult and like it was just like all I had was my faith. But then Pennsylvania, like kind of this as an adult from 2019 to 2023, it was a beautiful time of just like healing, of like finding like joy in like work again. And like I said, I started this like young adult ministry. And so starting to get involved again and kind of like leaning into my talents. But it was kind of still, just like, how do I want to put it? Like it kind of was like I was just like testing the waters, because it looked my life looked different this time, and
Mhm.
obviously I was starting to make decisions through the lens of my faith and my prayer. Like my prayer life was like the most important thing for me. And then I was also trying to date, and what does like dating look like as like a devout Catholic, and
Mhm.
totally messing up on that in that too. Like it
Mhm.
was just really like still kind of like a time of like just learning of like what does it mean to utilize my gifts and my talents as a practicing Catholic. But then it kind of set the foundation for now. I feel like in Chicago it's kind of the best of both worlds, and I feel like more fully alive of like here I am with all these gifts and talents, but I'm also really like rock solid in my faith. And so I think because of that, I am able to participate so actively in the local church, while also like working, while also
Mhm.
having friends, while also trying to date, like it's more, I think, a kind of just like it's been a refinement process. And then to the point where the Lord is like, it doesn't have to be like and or like it doesn't have to be an or. It can be like an and both, right?
Mhm.
Of just like I can want to be successful in my career or have ambitions or and have goals and dreams and also be a woman of faith.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I guess yeah, I
What,
hope that answers your question.
yeah. What was it like going back to Pennsylvania? Like you're just a whole new person now.
Yeah, so yeah, it was totally like a whole completely different experience. So I guess I should kind of go with like back a little bit with my
Yeah.
reversion.
Yeah.
So when I was, like I said, I was 25, I was living in Miami, and I was just in a place where I was just like really like kind of depressed, anxious. Things weren't going well with my boyfriend and all that, and like with work or anything. And so, I found myself one evening just like kind of drinking by myself a bottle, like a whole bottle of like red wine by myself because I was like finding kind of going back to the identity question. I was like finding my identity at the time in like partying and my boyfriend and like, just like trying to like live the good life in Miami. But I found that that was like really like empty. And so while I was like drinking this like bottle of red wine by myself, super sad, crying, depressed and miserable, I like the Holy Spirit like truly put the thought in my head to like look up young adult community. And so I know it was the Holy Spirit now because like I never like had experienced young adult community. Like I never would have thought to have like Googled that phrase like on my own. And so I did. I went and I Googled that night like young adult community, and I found that the biggest young adult community in Miami was actually just down the road from me at St. Augustine Catholic Church and Student Center. So it was beautiful because I like went to mass and then I saw that in the bulletin that they were having like a young adult event for Our Lady of Guadalupe. Because this was like the like kind of winter, like beginning of winter, end of like 2016. and they had like a big like Our Lady of Guadalupe like toy wrapping session. And so I was like, okay, I'll go check out this young adult event. And when I get there, it's like really funny because like I remember all five people that I met that day, and I'm like friends with all of them, and I'm best friends, and I later became roommates with one of them. But I remember thinking like all these people are super weird. Like I was like, these weird Jesus people, like what? I'm because like I had just never like heard people talk about God or the faith like so on fire like that. And so I was like a little freaked out, and like I was like, I'm never going back ever again. So I'm like very sensitive to that now as I like lead young adult things. But then it's funny because a month later, like towards the end of December 2016, Michelle Lopez, one of the women that I met that night, she invited me. She was like, hey, she emails me and she invites me to this like small group that she was having at her house called Rich Gift of Love. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's like interesting because um I'm like struggling to like be in love with my boyfriend right now. So I literally like go to the small group because I thought it would like help me repair my relationship with my boyfriend at the time. And it didn't work, but I didn't matter because like that's how I entered like young adult community in Miami and like had my reversion. And met like more of like my best friends who I'm like at like they're like some of my dearest friends today. But I also say all that because like, that session was actually led by a Dominican sister. It was like a series by a Dominican sister. And I'm actually in the process of like being in formation for becoming a third order Dominican, so a lay Dominican. So it's kind of funny like how like the Lord, like even from the beginning of like my reversion, like put certain things in my heart and it was like really like creating a path for me. So yeah, so kind of bringing that to like, okay, well, what is that like in Pennsylvania, moving to Pennsylvania? Well, when I moved to Pennsylvania, I had just come from this amazing like young adult community in Miami where I had like tons of friends, and like I was like doing like social things like social activities, all the time. And like, I mean, while like on a kind of like personal like level, right? Like with my job and stuff and like my like personal boyfriend, like romantic relationships, I was like feeling in terms of like friendships, I was in community, I actually was doing really well. And so it was like really hard for me to leave like Miami. Like I fought it like tooth and nail. I was like, Lord, are you sure you really want me to go? But he made it very clear that I needed to like move home because one, my sister was experiencing a family emergency, and so I wanted to be there for my
Mhm.
sister. And then two, the house we were living in got sold from out from under us, and like then like yeah, like all of my gigs that I was doing freelancing, no one was renewing. So it was just like the Lord like was very much closing all the doors and was like, I need you to move back home. And so I did. And like it was kind of tough those first 6 months because I didn't have community, and Bethlehem, Pennsylvania is much smaller than like, Miami. But then I kind of just made the decision. I was like, okay, well, I miss community. I desire community. So I just decided to start my own community, and I created our own like Lehigh Valley WhatsApp chat, and so that's still going strong, even though I haven't been there for 2.5 years. I like created like a young adult group, and so I think I kind of just was like, okay, I desire community, then I'm gonna make it. And from there, like yeah, I got introduced to some more dear friends of mine, and really just kind of really helped to formulate groups that like people have been really like grateful for that it helped them find friends so and or their spouses or so it was cool.
Now that you're saying this, I wonder if those leadership roles early on in like college prepared you for this, starting your own young adult groups and finding that community when you moved back to Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that's where I feel like the Lord was like starting to help me like okay, because as I mentioned like in Miami I wasn't really doing all that, but in Pennsylvania it was kind of like okay, like starting to like refine these gifts and
Mhm.
talents but in the through the lens of faith that I have.
And it's funny because you go to a church, St. Augustine in Miami. I grew up calling it Augustine, and then I have a friend, and that's his confirmation name. So he's like, "No, it's Augustine." So I think I should believe him that it's actually Augustine and not Augustine.
Yeah, I always call it Saint Augustine, Saint A's, and I always just thought it was funny because I kind of call him my patron saint of my reversion because
Mm.
He was actually a really good one, because he was a womanizer, he was a partier, he was like
Yeah.
ambitious too. Like I actually resonate a lot with like Saint Augustine, so it's funny that the church that brought me home was like named after him.
I grew up going to a church where most of the people were double, triple, quadruple my age, and my faith was something I just feel like I had to like check the boxes, you know what I mean? Like, oh, my parents are going to confession. I just have to go with them. And I think it was in 2021 when I visited a brand new church. It was 30 minutes away. And like it was COVID, so like every other pew was blocked off. We literally had to like go make a reservation to go to mass during COVID. But I went and it's 50% capacity, but it just felt so full. Like there was so many young adults and families and kids, which is what I didn't grow up with. So it was just cool and it was refreshing. And I made so many good friends. Like you said, I found my own young adult communities too. And I remembered sitting around my church where with all those old people, not saying anything bad, they're great people. But I was just like, I wonder if there's people my age. And like you said, like you went to this young adult community and you're like, there's people my age who are so on fire for Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, I think having community is like super important, and especially if you're like early on in your faith journey, either having a reversion or conversion, because I think you just need other people that love the Lord as much as you do and to remind you like you're not weird, you're not crazy, like you can totally be like a normal person like that likes to have fun and enjoy life, but also, yeah, like follows just our moralities and our values.
We're running out of time, but like you mentioned, you're living in Chicago, you're living out your faith goals and your life goals. So I want to just talk a little bit about that and a few of the Catholic ministries, like you mentioned earlier, that you volunteer for.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest goal right now for for me and probably a lot of people is that I'm looking to get married. So just definitely investing a lot of my time and just like trying to date actively and meet my person wherever that's at. But yeah, in the meantime though, I'm a big proponent of like how do you wait well? And
Mm.
waiting well doesn't mean that you just like pray every day. I mean, it's important to pray every day, but I feel like there's sometimes this misconception that if you just like pray every day really hard that like
Mhm.
and don't do anything that like your like future spouse is just gonna like show up randomly and bump into you, or like if you're a woman that he'll just like randomly ask you at the end of mass. Like not saying that that can't happen, but I feel like that's really like the probability is very low. So like yeah, I think you just need to learn how to like wait well, and how do you like feel happy and feel joyful now. Like, and I think that really comes from just like rooting your identity and being a beloved son or daughter of God. And part of being like doing that is like, okay, Lord, what are the missions and the service opportunities that you're calling me to do right now in this season of my life? And so that's why I've gotten like involved in all these things. Like really enjoy like, young Catholic professionals, because that's really dear to my heart as someone who studied business and loves business, like how I think it's really important to be a good steward of money. And how are you a good steward of money? And how do you treat like workers well and employees well? And just kind of do business well. Like I fully believe that the world needs more like faithfully devout Catholic businessmen and women, just because like money is a pretty powerful object. And it'll take on the character of the owner. So if you're like totally like a sleaze, like jerk, like who likes to like cheat people and rip people off, then you're like money is going to take on that character, versus if you are a person that like really like loves the Lord, wants to help out the poor, wants to treat people like fairly, like money's going to take on that character well too, and you can do good things then with money. So yeah, so I just kind of love like being part of young Catholic professionals that help people like integrate their faith into their everyday life, because like and their everyday work life in particular, and just yeah, doing kind of like participating in the mass, it really like helps me with like just being more focused and engaged with the mass. But yeah, I think it's just kind of important to really utilize your gifts and your talents in the season of life that you're in, and to the fullest of your abilities.
Well, I don't know if you had any final comments or resources, or where can our listeners connect with young Catholic professionals or with you, or
Yeah, so you can follow YCP Chicago, so Young
Mhm.
Catholic Professional Chicago. We are on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook. And you could also just like check out our website, youngcatholicprofessionals.org. And then for me personally, I'm also on like Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. So just follow me on all the regular social channels.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you spending some time with us, and we'll leave all that stuff linked down below. But thank you so much for spending 40 minutes tonight with us.
Okay, great. Thank you. Bye.